Eleanor slipped away from the UN reception, her mind racing. The quantum-entangled communication device in her lab wasn't just an anomaly. It was evidence that upended everything the consortium claimed. Outside the Grand Hall, Manhattan glittered under the shadow of the hovering consortium vessels, their hulls reflecting city lights in prismatic patterns. "Quite the performance in there," said a voice behind her. Dr. James Watkins, her colleague from Oxford, joined her at the balcony. "You weren't convinced by Ambassador Selnak's generous offer of obsolete technology they've dressed up as gifts." "Those gifts are Trojan horses," Eleanor replied, watching crowds below taking selfies with the alien ships in the background. "They're scanning us, James. Every device they've handed out is collecting data, our infrastructure, defense systems, cultural touchpoints." Her secure phone vibrated, a message from her lab in Ethiopia. Artifact 7J42 showing increased energy signature since consortium arrival, responding to their presence. "They're looking for something," Eleanor murmured. "The question is, do they know what they're looking for, or just that something's here?" James leaned closer. "The Chinese delegation already signed preliminary agreements for consortium educational exchanges. The EU follows tomorrow." "We're moving too fast," Eleanor said. 50,000 years of civilization makes them cosmic teenagers, not elders. Our own archaeological record shows. Evidence that would get you laughed out of academia if you published it," James interrupted. "Ancient advanced human tech. That's career suicide." Eleanor's phone vibrated again. Satellite imagery confirms consortium ships deploying something at coordinates matching our Ethiopia site. 6 more locations globally, all match your theoretical network nodes. "They're searching the same places we are," she whispered. "This isn't coincidence." Back inside, Zelnak's voice carried through the hall as he described the marvels humanity would witness once properly elevated to galactic standards. Eleanor studied the aliens' fluid movements, the way the energy being inside the exosuit seemed to pulse with subtle patterns when discussing certain topics. "Humanity's achievement of nuclear fission was quite impressive for your development stage," Zelnak was saying, though of course quite primitive compared to zero-point energy extraction. Eleanor approached, ignoring James's warning tug at her sleeve. "Ambassador Selnak, I'm curious. Your historians place the age of the first interstellar civilizations at roughly 50,000 years. Have you encountered evidence of earlier spacefaring cultures?" The swirling energies within Selnak's transparent exosuit briefly pulsed crimson before returning to calm blue. "There are myths, Dr. Chen. Every primitive culture imagines gods who came before. The consortium deals in scientific certainty, not legends." "Curious," Eleanor replied. "Because we found artifacts here on Earth that predate your 50,000-year galactic history by hundreds of thousands of years." The reception hall grew quieter. Zelnak's form contracted slightly within his containment suit. "Human dating methods are notoriously unreliable. We would be happy to provide correct historical context once your species has been properly integrated." Eleanor smiled politely. "I look forward to comparing methodologies, Ambassador." As she turned away, she noticed something unsettling. The various consortium representatives, different species with supposedly different evolutionary histories, had all tensed simultaneously at her mention of ancient artifacts, a synchronized reaction, as if responding to a shared protocol. Her phone vibrated one final time. Secondary scan of artifact 7J42 complete. It's not just a communication device, it's a key. The walls of the chamber beneath Göbekli Tepe hummed with energy as Eleanor placed her palm against the newly revealed control terminal. Lines of light traced the contours of her hand, then spread like luminescent veins throughout the structure. "It's reading your DNA," Dr. Kwame Osei said, monitoring equipment they'd hastily set up after discovering the chamber. "These energy signatures match nothing in current scientific understanding." Eleanor felt a strange resonance, as if the technology were communicating directly with her cells. The sensation was both intimate and alien, like recalling a memory she never knew she had. "Transmission incoming," said Dr. Maya Patel, their quantum physicist. "It's broadcasting." "To whom?" Eleanor asked, unable to pull her hand away from the terminal. "Everywhere," Maya whispered. "The signal is propagating through quantum channels to every node location on our map simultaneously." The stone walls around them shimmered, revealing themselves as mere holographic camouflage, concealing a metallic structure of impossible complexity. Symbols appeared in the air, not projected, but somehow existing within the fabric of space itself. "That's Proto-Sumerian," Eleanor said, translating instinctively despite never having studied the language. Memory Keeper identified. Reactivation sequence. 1 of 12 nodes restored. A 3-dimensional map materialized before them, showing Earth with 12 pulsing points. One glowed brighter than the others, their current location. The remaining 11 flickered weakly, awaiting activation. "The consortium will have detected this energy surge," Quaim said. "We need to move." As if confirming his words, their perimeter sensors chimed. Maya checked her tablet. Multiple vehicles approaching. Consortium signatures. "Download everything," Eleanor ordered, finally breaking contact with the terminal. The symbols remained etched in her mind, shifting and rearranging themselves into knowledge she somehow understood. The node network was designed to slowly reawaken humanity's dormant genetic memories without triggering catastrophic mental breakdown from sudden information overload. They packed their equipment with practiced efficiency, but Eleanor hesitated before leaving. Following an impulse she couldn't explain, she pressed her palm to the wall beside the terminal. A small section dissolved, revealing a crystalline object the size of her thumb. "What is that?" Quaim asked as she pocketed it. "Insurance," Eleanor replied, though she couldn't have explained how she knew. They slipped out through a passage that hadn't existed 30 minutes earlier, emerging half a kilometer from their entry point, just as consortium security forces surrounded the main site. Back at their temporary base in an abandoned mining facility, Eleanor examined the crystal she'd taken. In her hand, it was transparent, but when Quaim or Maya touched it, it remained opaque. "It's keyed to your genetic signature," Maya said after running tests. "Like the terminal, it only responds to you." That night, while her colleagues slept, Eleanor held the crystal and whispered, "Show me." The crystal pulsed once, then projected a holographic figure, a woman in uniform with Eleanor's eyes and jawline. "Genetic lineage confirmed," the figure said. "I am Admiral Helena Chen, 47th Fleet, Earth Expansion Division. If you are seeing this message, the Sleeper Protocol has initiated awakening procedures. The dormancy cannot last forever. Descended. They will have returned by now, claiming to discover us, unaware they are returning to their source." A hologram smiled sadly. "The consortium races were our greatest achievement, and our greatest failure. They don't remember their origins. Some of them were never meant to know." Eleanor's hands trembled. "Who are you?" "I am your ancestor from the 7th expansion era," Helena replied. "And if the memory triggers embedded in your DNA are activating, then you are becoming what I once was, what all humans once were, before we chose to forget." The hologram flickered. "The next node is beneath the ruins humans now call Angkor Wat. Hurry, Descendant. The children are searching for their parents, though they don't realize it. Some will embrace the truth. Others will destroy anything that challenges their perceived supremacy." As the hologram faded, Eleanor noticed something had changed. The unintelligible equation scrawled on Maya's nearby notepad now made perfect sense to her. Her genetic memory was beginning to awaken. The journey to the Gobi complex had cost them. Consortium forces had intercepted them near the Mongolia border, and only Dr. Isamu Takeda's sacrifice, staying behind to misdirect their pursuers, had allowed Eleanor and the core team to reach the coordinates from her visions. Now, standing before the hologram of Admiral Helena Chen, Eleanor felt the weight of 12 million years of hidden history. The memory extraction process cannot be reversed, Helena's hologram warned. Once begun, neural pathways will restructure to accommodate ancestral knowledge. What happens to me? Eleanor asked. To who I am now. Integration, not replacement, Helena replied. You remain yourself, but with access to what was intentionally hidden from our descendants. The alternative was extinction. Eleanor stepped onto the activation platform. I consent. Light engulfed her as the machines initiated the process. She experienced time differently, subjectively enduring years, while only minutes passed outside her consciousness. She witnessed the rise and fall of human civilizations across galaxies, experienced the terror of the extra-dimensional hunters, felt the agonizing decision to implement the dormancy protocol. When the process completed, Eleanor collapsed into Maya's arms, her mind overwhelmed by millions of years of compressed experiences. Did it work? Quaim asked, scanning her vitals. Eleanor looked at the medical equipment and instantly understood its limitations, how to improve it using principles that wouldn't be discovered for centuries. Yes, she whispered. I remember. Everything. She stood shakily. The consortium isn't a unified entity. It's fractured along lines its members don't even recognize. Genetic programming asserting itself despite millennia of divergent evolution. Moving to a dormant console, her fingers flew across surfaces that responded to her touch. The chamber illuminated, revealing a vast underground complex extending kilometers in every direction. This facility was a training academy, she explained, accessing systems with instinctive knowledge. Before the dormancy, millions of humans prepared here for interstellar missions. Holographic displays activated, showing the complex in its prime, filled with humans manipulating technologies beyond current comprehension. Among the historical figures, Eleanor recognized one that made her gasp. That's Selnak, she said, pointing to a human scientist working with what appeared to be swirling energy contained in a field. Or rather, that's Dr. Xavier Nakamura, the human who created the Voidborn. Maya stepped closer to the display. You're saying Selnak is a designed species based on human consciousness transferred into energy form, Eleanor confirmed. Created for longevity to oversee the younger races during our dormancy. But something went wrong. The Voidborn were supposed to remember their origins, to recognize humanity when we reawakened. Quaim studied another display showing genetic sequences. These look like limitations, programmed restrictions, ethical safeguards, Eleanor corrected. Each consortium species was designed with specific limitations to prevent them from developing technologies that would attract the hunters. The Voidborn cannot manipulate certain energy frequencies. The Nexari cannot develop quantum technologies beyond specific parameters. She accessed a secure database, bringing up profiles of consortium species. They were designed to be caretakers, not conquerors. Something corrupted their purpose. The facility rumbled. Proximity alarms flashed. They'd found us, Maya warned. Eleanor moved to a weapons vault that opened at her approach. Inside were devices that resembled simple bands of metal. Put these on, she instructed, securing one around her wrist. Kinetic deflection fields. They'll stop any consortium weapon. How do you know that? Quaim asked, slipping one on. Because I designed them. Eleanor replied with the certainty of genetic memory. Or rather, Helena Chin did, which means I did. We need to reach the facility core. There's something they must not acquire. As they moved deeper into the complex, Eleanor accessed more systems, bringing ancient defense protocols online. The consortium believes they're investigating an archaeological anomaly, she said. They don't realize they're returning to their birthplace. She paused at a junction, memory guiding her choice of direction. What they find here will shatter everything they believe about themselves. Ambassador Xelnak's energy form pulsed erratically as he reviewed the data streams from Earth. The Security Council chamber aboard the consortium command vessel was silent, all 17 representatives of the senior species watching as unprecedented energy signatures flared across holographic displays of the planet below. The human named Eleanor Chen has activated 3 nodes, said Vox Imperative Narat of the Nexari. The third activation caused a cascading response in 6 other locations. We've lost surveillance drones at each site. She moves with impossible knowledge, added Arkan Talira of the Crystalline Lithari. The human security forces pursuing her report. She anticipates their tactics before implementation. Zelnak's containment field flickered, the void-born equivalent of agitation. Our excavation teams at the Gobi site reported encountering defensive measures beyond any human technological capability. Before communication was lost, they transmitted this. The central hologram shifted to show a DNA strand with unusual markers highlighted. Analyze, Zelnak commanded. The ship's intelligence responded. DNA sample belongs to human subject Eleanor Chen. Anomalous sequences detected in telomeric regions. Pattern matches fragmentary data from the restricted archives concerning theoretical constructs of the architects. The chamber erupted in alarmed communication across multiple frequencies. Zelnak pulsed to command silence. The architects are myth, insisted Supreme Strategist Karath of the reptilian Varag Dominion. Religious propaganda from the early unification wars. Then explain the correlation. Zelnak countered, his energy form darkening. The human's DNA contains sequences that match our most ancient and restricted records. Dr. Cyril moved forward, her four-armed form casting multiple shadows. There is a stronger explanation than coincidence. Observe the phylogenetic analysis of all consortium founding species. The display shifted to show evolutionary trees of the 17 senior consortium species. Each originated on different worlds, evolved under different conditions, yet certain genetic markers appeared across all 17 taxonomies, defying evolutionary logic. These commonalities should not exist, Cyril said quietly, unless they were engineered to exist. Blasphemy, hissed Karath. Science, countered Cyril. The consortium charter forbids genetic self-modification beyond therapeutic applications. Have we ever questioned why this prohibition exists across all 17 founding species? Why each of us, independently, developed this same taboo? Zelnak's energy form contracted to a tight sphere, an expression of intense focus. Access the primordial records. Ambassador, warned Narat, those records are sealed by founding protocol. Override. Existential contingency, Zelnak commanded. The chamber's security protocols shifted, admitting them to archives untouched for millennia. Ancient symbols appeared, similar to those Eleanor had encountered beneath Göbekli Tepe. As the translation processed, segments appeared. Project SEEDER. Phase 3 Implementation. Species Development Protocol. Genetic Limitations. Security Implementation. Architect Oversight. Dormancy Contingencies. Earth. Primary Repository Classification. These records predate the consortium, whispered Talira. They predate our civilizations. They are instructions, Zelnak said, his form pulsing with realization. We were not the first. We were never the first. The ship shuddered suddenly. Alarms blared as systems reported massive energy surges from Earth's surface. The human security forces attempting to capture Dr. Chen's team have been neutralized, reported a tactical officer. Not killed, their weapons and technology simply deactivated. On the displays, a new energy signature appeared. A small craft launching from the Gobi region, utilizing propulsion technology, unlike anything in consortium records. It accelerated at impossible speeds, bypassing the orbital blockade before any countermeasures could deploy. Track it, commanded Narat. Impossible, came the response. It's using dimensional shifting tow. The officer paused. Ambassador, it's heading directly for the restricted zone in the Oort cloud. Zelnak's energy form flared with comprehension. The stellar archives. They're seeking the complete records. What is stored there? Demanded Karath. The truth, Zelnak replied, memories stirring that he couldn't explain. protocols activating in his consciousness that had lain dormant since his creation. About all of us. Karath rose to his full height. Dispatch the fleet to intercept. Whatever is in these archives must remain sealed. No, Zelnak countered, his form shifting to include patterns none had seen before. We must follow, but not to intercept. I believe we are being called home. The Mediterranean node beneath Alexandria required Eleanor's physical presence, despite her awakened abilities. Ancient security protocols demanded direct genetic verification, a safeguard against remote hijacking by entities mimicking human command signatures. Eleanor stood on the shoreline as dawn broke. Around her, the remnants of the once great library lay buried beneath modern structures, its true significance lost to history, until now. The consortium blockade has doubled, Maya reported, checking satellite feeds through interfaces Eleanor had modified. 7 capital ships directly overhead. They're too late, Eleanor replied, her voice carrying new confidence. She raised her arms, and the waters before her began to part, not through mystical means, but precise manipulation of molecular bonds temporarily altering water density along calculated vectors. A pathway opened to the seabed, walls of water standing impossibly still on either side. Exposed on the seafloor lay a metallic dome, encrusted with centuries of marine growth. The library was never destroyed, Eleanor explained as they descended the revealed path. It was a cover story. The actual repository was relocated here when the dormancy protocol anticipated human civilization's self-destructive cycles. At the dome's entrance, Eleanor placed her palm against a surface that still recognized her genetic lineage after 12 million years. The structure hummed to life, marine growth disintegrating as reactivation protocols initiated. Inside, the central chamber contained a crystalline pillar, the node itself. As Eleanor approached, images appeared around her, Earth as it once was, a gleaming world of impossible cities and orbital rings, humans commanding technologies that rewrote physical laws. The Mediterranean was artificial, she whispered as knowledge flooded her consciousness. Terraformed during the Third Expansion Era as an atmospheric regulation system. She placed both hands on the crystalline pillar. Connection established, she felt the planet respond. Ancient systems awakening from engineered slumber. Energy coursed through geological formations designed to appear natural while housing technologies beyond contemporary understanding. Miles away, beneath the Sahara, vast arrays shed their sandy camouflage. Across global seabeds, dormant structures awakened. The planet's magnetic field strengthened as long-dormant generators engaged, creating a protective barrier against both cosmic radiation and potential observation. In orbit, consortium vessels recorded the unprecedented energy signatures with increasing alarm. Their most sophisticated analytical systems failed to categorize the technologies activating across Earth's surface and interior. Eleanor's consciousness expanded through the node network, briefly touching millions of human minds worldwide. She felt their confusion, fear, and wonder as dormant genetic memories stirred. Children woke speaking languages they'd never learned. Engineers suddenly understood principles that would have earned them Nobel Prizes a day earlier. Through the awakening network, Eleanor broadcast a carefully calibrated message, not words, but embedded knowledge, gradually unlocking humanity's hidden inheritance without causing psychological trauma from too rapid awakening. Within the Alexandria node, Maya and Quain watched in awe as Eleanor's form seemed to shimmer with internal light. The chamber walls displayed cascading data as Earth's transformation accelerated. Eleanor. Maya called, concerned by her friend's trance-like state. Eleanor's eyes opened, now containing subtle geometric patterns in their irises, external manifestation of her neurological rewiring. The planet remembers, she said. And now so do we. A proximity alert sounded. Maya checked their perimeter sensors. Massive energy signature approaching. It's consortium, but different. The dome's ceiling became transparent, revealing a hovering craft unlike standard consortium design. A single figure descended through an energy beam. the unmistakable form of Ambassador Selnak. He came alone, Quaim said, checking for additional signatures. Not as an enemy, Eleanor replied with certainty. His programming is reasserting. The Voidborn were designed to recognize and respond to authenticated architect commands. As Selnak approached the entrance, ancient protocols acknowledged his identity despite his altered form. The doors parted, admitting him to humanity's inner sanctum not as conqueror or investigator, but as something his kind had forgotten they were, a creation returning to its source. Dr. Chen. Selnak's energy form pulsed with complex patterns. I am experiencing conflicting directives. Core protocols are activating that override my consortium conditioning. You're remembering, Eleanor said simply. Welcome home, Guardian. The ship Eleanor had constructed from reactivated technology navigated the outer reaches of the solar system with effortless precision. Built using principles that transcended conventional physics, it traveled through folded spacetime rather than across it, making the journey to the Orc cloud a matter of hours rather than months. Eleanor stood at the navigation interface, her consciousness partially merged with the ship's systems. Beside her, Selnak's energy form had stabilized into new patterns as his original programming reasserted itself. We're approaching the coordinates, Maya announced. But sensors show nothing there. Its phase shifted, Eleanor explained. The archives exist slightly out of sync with our dimensional reference frame, a precaution against detection by the extradimensional hunters. She manipulated controls that responded to thought as much as touch. Ambassador. No, Guardian Selnak. Your energy signature is needed for this part. The archives were designed to recognize both human and Guardian authorization. Selnak's form expanded, tendrils of energy extending toward the interface. I was created for this purpose, he said, memories continuing to surface. Dr. Xavier Nakamura transferred his consciousness into this form to serve as eternal guardian of human knowledge. I am both his successor and continuation. As their combined authorization signatures broadcast into the seemingly empty region of space, reality itself appeared to fold. A structure materialized where nothing had been visible before, a vast installation the size of Earth's moon, its architecture defying conventional design with impossible angles and surfaces that appeared simultaneously solid and fluid. The stellar archives, Eleanor breathed. Humanity's backup system. The ship docked at a reception port that recognized their genetic and energy signatures. As they disembarked, the interior spaces reconfigured, adapting to visitors for the first time in millions of years. Inside, they entered a vast atrium where information manifested as three-dimensional constructs, living data that responded to their presence. Eleanor approached a central terminal, her hands moving with certainty across interfaces designed for human interaction. Show us the Cedar Protocol, she commanded. The atrium transformed into an immersive presentation. They stood among stars as an ancient voice narrated humanity's greatest endeavor. Project Cedar began 15 million years ago as humanity faced its greatest challenge, the arrival of extradimensional entities attracted to advanced technological civilizations. Rather than abandon our achievements or face extinction, we created a third option, temporary regression combined with guided evolution of guardian species. The display showed hundreds of worlds where early life forms were carefully modified, set on evolutionary paths designed to produce specific traits and limitations. Each seeded species was engineered with specific capabilities and deliberate restrictions. The narration continued. The Voidborn were created from volunteered human consciousness, designed for longevity and memory retention. The Nexari were designed for adaptability and strategic thinking. The Lithari for data preservation and analysis. Maya watched in awe as her own DNA appeared, compared against genome maps of ancient humans. We've changed too. Self-modification, Eleanor confirmed. Part of the dormancy protocol was engineering ourselves to temporarily forget. The memory keepers were designed to retain access pathways to our ancestral knowledge. Quaim studied a display showing containment technologies surrounding the solar system. These barriers, they've been protecting Earth all along, camouflaging it. Zelnak corrected, his energy patterns shifting as he absorbed information directly, making Earth appear to be an unremarkable developing world rather than the source point of galactic civilization. Eleanor accessed deeper systems, revealing the secure chamber at the archive's core. There's something else here, something beyond historical records. The pathway opened, revealing a vast chamber containing thousands of crystalline structures, each housing a complete human consciousness in suspended state. The Continuity Council, Zelnak said with reverence. Volunteers who remained awake while the rest of humanity forgot. One crystal illuminated as they approached. Within it, a face formed. Admiral Helena Chen. "Welcome, descendants," Helena said. "And welcome, Guardian Zelnak. Your return means the awakening protocol has begun. But you must hurry. The Nexeri fleet approaches, and they do not come as allies. They reject their origins," Zelnak confirmed. Supreme Strategist Karath has convinced many that these revelations threaten consortium autonomy. Helena's expression grew solemn. Then the time for gradual awakening has passed. We must complete the reclamation now, before they attack Earth in its vulnerable transitional state. The Archive's central command sphere hummed with activity as Eleanor integrated her consciousness with the facility's defense systems. Through neural interfaces, she monitored the approaching Nexeri fleet. 47 warships led by Supreme Strategist Karath's flagship, the Indomitable Purpose. They've deployed quantum disruptors, Maya reported from a secondary station, designed to destabilize phase-shifted structures. Primitive tools against architect technology, Zelnak observed, his energy form interfacing directly with communications arrays. But dangerous in their ignorance. They don't realize destabilizing the archives could rupture dimensional boundaries, potentially attracting the very predators we've hidden from. Admiral Helena Chen's consciousness projection studied tactical displays with millennia of experience. The Nexeri were designed for warfare, our contingency force against lesser threats. Karath has violated his species' core directives by targeting his creators. Not violated, Eleanor corrected, understanding flowing through her awakened genetic memory. The directives were programmed with an escape clause, free will to ensure the created species wouldn't be mere automatons. We gave them choice, even if that choice might be used against us. Helena nodded. The ethical paradox of creation. We couldn't program perfect loyalty without creating slaves. Instead, we created children, who sometimes rebel against their parents. The Archive's sensors detected energy spikes as the Nexeri fleet prepared their first volley. Eleanor's hands moved across interfaces, activating defensive protocols dormant for millions of years. "Tell me you're not planning to destroy them," Quaim said, watching weapon systems come online. "No," Eleanor replied. "We need something more powerful than destruction. We need truth." She accessed the Archive's most secure databanks, extracting the original genome files for each consortium species and the complete records of their creation and purpose. With Zelnak's help, she compiled a transmission package containing undeniable evidence of their origins, not as a weapon, but as an offering. "Broadcast on all consortium frequencies," she commanded. "They'll block it," Helena warned. "Their systems can't," Eleanor smiled. "Because we designed their communication protocols. The backdoor access was built into their technology from inception. The transmission launched, bypassing Nexeri encryption as if it didn't exist. On the Indomitable Purpose, command screens filled with data that Karath couldn't prevent his crew from seeing. The truth of their creation, purpose, and the reasons for their limitations. "They're still advancing," Maya reported. "Prepare for a more direct approach," Eleanor said, activating the Archive's transportation system. "I need to speak with Karath personally." "That's too dangerous," Quaim protested. "It's necessary," Eleanor countered. "This was never about technology or power. It's about reconciliation." Before anyone could stop her, Eleanor initiated the transport sequence. She materialized on the bridge of the Indomitable Purpose, causing chaos as Nexari security personnel surrounded her with weapons drawn. Supreme Strategist Karath rose from his command chair, his reptilian form imposing at nearly 8 feet tall. "The human architect," he hissed. "You come to surrender. I come to understand." Eleanor replied calmly. "Your species was created to be protectors, the guardians of younger civilizations while humanity slept. Your anger is justified, Karath. The truth was kept from you." "We were designed with limitations," Karath snarled. "Engineered to be inferior." "No," Eleanor corrected. "Engineered to survive. The limitations in your quantum comprehension abilities aren't shackles, they're shields. Species that developed certain technologies attracted the hunters from outside our universe." She gestured, and the ship's main view screen activated without her touching a control. It displayed records of civilizations consumed by dimensional rifts, entire worlds reduced to empty husks as entities beyond comprehension fed on their technological energy. "Your limitations were our greatest gift to you," Eleanor continued. "They kept you safe while allowing you to thrive. But now you have a choice that was always your birthright." She extended her hand, a small crystalline device in her palm. "This contains the keys to remove the genetic limitations from your species, complete freedom to develop any technology, explore any scientific principle, but it also contains the truth about what that freedom costs, visibility to the hunters." The bridge fell silent as Karath stared at the offered crystal. "I don't offer conditional surrender," Eleanor said. "I offer partnership." Humanity created the consortium species not as servants, but as the next stage of cosmic evolution, diversity of form, and thought beyond what a single species could achieve. We didn't abandon you. We gave you the galaxy to grow into while we protected you from threats you couldn't yet comprehend. Karath's clawed hand hesitated above the crystal. "And if we refuse this partnership, then we part ways," Eleanor answered simply. "We'll respect your autonomy. It was always your inheritance. But know that the hunters still exist, and united we have better chances than divided." Around them, Nexari officers watched their leader, a collective future hanging in his decision. 3 years after the awakening, Eleanor stood on the observation platform of New Alexandria, a gleaming spire rising from the Mediterranean, where once the hidden node had rested. Below, the city extended in graceful arcs, blending recovered ancient architecture with new forms that honored both humanity's past and its reimagined future. The Jupiter settlements report successful adaptation to the atmospheric platforms, reported Maya, now Director of Interplanetary Development. Her neural implants, a seamless melding of technology with biology, connected her to information streams across the solar system. "The first 10,000 colonists will transfer next month." "And the Nexari cooperation?" Eleanor asked, watching ships of various designs navigate Earth's skies, some human, others distinctly alien. "Better than expected," said Quaim, his role as diplomatic liaison to the reformed coalition, evident in the subtle geometric patterns etched into his formal attire. Karath's decision to embrace partnership has influenced even the most resistant species. The Lithari have opened their crystal archives to us, and the Voidborn are helping calibrate the dimensional monitors. Eleanor nodded, satisfaction mingling with the weight of responsibility. Her position as chair of the Architect Council made her the nominal leader of humanity's reemergence, but leadership in this new era was more about coordination than command. "Any word from the Deep Scouts?" she asked. Maya's expression grew solemn. "The Antares sector shows signs of hunter activity within the last century. The warning system is operational, but we'll need to accelerate the barrier network." The discussion paused as a shimmer of energy announced Selmac's arrival. His form had evolved further, the containment suit discarded as he learned to maintain coherence independently. Beside him floated a holographic projection of Helena Chen. Her consciousness remained preserved in the archives, but could manifest anywhere with sufficient bandwidth. "The memory integration protocols are proceeding well," Helena reported. 93% of Earth's population has received at least primary awakening. Education centers can barely keep up with demand as people pursue knowledge locked in their genetics. And the side effects? Eleanor asked. Minimal, Zelnak replied. Your approach of gradual awakening has prevented the psychological trauma we feared. Most humans adapt within weeks to their expanding awareness. A young woman approached, her uniform marking her as a recently graduated officer in the Stellar Navigation Corps. Chair Chen, the Continuity Council requests your presence. The first dimensional barrier test is ready. Eleanor nodded and turned to her companions. Let's not keep them waiting. They boarded a gravity platform that carried them to a massive structure floating above what had once been the Sahara Desert. Now, the landscape below blended engineered ecosystems with technological infrastructure in harmonious patterns visible from orbit, Earth announcing its true nature to the cosmos. Inside the facility, Eleanor joined a circle of technicians, human and alien working side by side. At the center stood the first prototype of the dimensional barrier generator, a technology that would shield developing civilizations from the hunters while allowing controlled advancement. Karaf entered, his imposing form now adorned with symbols of both Nexari heritage and human connection. The decision he had made aboard the Indomitable Purpose 3 years ago had transformed not just his species' future, but the coalition itself. The barrier technology incorporates elements we never considered. He acknowledged, genuine respect in his voice. My people's strategic insights combined with human dimensional understanding have created something neither could have achieved alone. As intended, Eleanor replied with a smile. Diversity was always the plan. They watched as the prototype activated, creating a controlled dimensional field that would be replicated across thousands of worlds. Protection for younger species still emerging, still unaware of the wider cosmos and its dangers. Later, as the celebration of the successful test concluded, Eleanor found herself alone on a balcony overlooking the transformed Earth. A child approached, a girl no more than 7, with eyes that held wisdom beyond her years. Are you one of the architects? The child asked. Eleanor knelt to meet her gaze. We all are now. The question isn't whether we built the past, but what we'll build next. The child considered this, then pointed to the stars now appearing in the evening sky. Will we go back to all of them? Not to conquer, Eleanor replied, but to reconnect, to teach, and to learn. We've changed during our long sleep, and so has the galaxy. And the hunters? The child asked, surprising Eleanor with her awareness. We'll face them together, humans, and our created family of species. That's the lesson we needed to remember. No single approach, no single form of life is enough. Diversity is our greatest strength against entropy. As the child departed, Eleanor returned her gaze to the stars. The architects had returned, not as conquerors or gods, but as guides awakening from a long slumber, ready to join a cosmos that had continued evolving in their absence. Earth was no longer hiding its light, but preparing to shine as one beacon among many in a galaxy where created and creators move forward together.